We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Israil Madrimov. He's jumping to new heights. And we're going to talk about that in this video. Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov. Get ready for it. A few weeks out. The fight is August 3rd, Riyadh season. And it even has special guest Eminem, who just dropped the Death of Slim Shady album, aka Marshall Mathers. Hey, yo, you might see me jogging. You might see me walking. You might see me walking the dead Rottweiler dog with his head chopped off in the park with a spike collar, hollering at him because the son of a won't quit barking. Or leaning out the window with a cocked shotgun, driving up the block in the car that they shot Pac in, looking for big skillers, dressing ridiculous, blue and red like I don't see what the big deal is. So, yeah, it should be a good fight. Very good card. You got some banger fights on here. There was a fight that was rescheduled. Virgil Ortiz, Tim Tszyu. No longer a thing. Tim Tszyu gonna fight in Australia, and rumors suggested it could be Erickson Lubin. Virgil Ortiz is fighting Sergey Boachuk. Very good fights as well, but just won't be on this card. Now, you guys seen the clip at the beginning. Israil Madrimov, he's doing a jump, a box jump. Now, I don't know the exact measurement of how high he jumped and exactly how much. It looks like maybe 4.5 feet, maybe a little bit more. I don't know, but it's considerable. If you look at his height next to the box, you can clearly see he's jumping a good length. Now, I know some people are like, what does this have to do with boxing, Ego? Listen, I said the same thing, and I'm just going to double down on it. I think this is a great fight. The only downside, if you're going to call it that, if I had to nitpick something, is that Crawford is fighting someone that the world at large doesn't know. But I see this as being a difficult fight. I think a lot of people are just assuming they know more about Crawford than they do Madrimov because he's been more in the public eye. So what I've seen is a lot of people are just counting Israil Madrimov completely out because of the quality fighter that Terence Crawford is. They're saying stuff like, oh, Crawford fighting a bum and Crawford in 2 rounds, 1 round, things like that. Listen, I don't even remember the last time Crawford beat anybody in the first round. So this shows me people who are most likely don't know much about boxing or wishful thinking. Again, I see this as being a competitive fight. I don't know how long it'll last. Crawford can certainly win the fight, so I'm not suggesting anything else. But I also truly believe that Madrimov could win the fight given the correct game plan. He's going to have to do a lot of things right because Crawford is a phenomenal boxer himself. But the interesting thing for me is that Madrimov, what he possesses, plus the fact that it's a new division where Crawford is not taking a tune-up. He's going straight up at a guy who just became a champion in March. So that's a ballsy move from Terence Crawford. And that's what's making this a lot more intriguing for me. If I had seen Crawford perform versus anyone, like let's say he fought Jermell Charlo and beat him, or he beat Castano or anything like that. If he fought a guy like that and was able to beat him, and I was able to see how he looked in this new division, then maybe my assessment would be a little bit different. But I'm a realist, and I'm not giving people credit. I give you credit for what you've done, but I can't exceed that and just start giving you like heaps of praise when you're in a new division. Now I can have my forecast, like for example, Andre Ward. You guys know, I know Ward, big fan of Ward. We're from the same region, Bay Area. And despite that, I truly felt that Ward would have success at 175, even though he did most of his work at 168, right? He announced he was doing an extension with HBO. It was something like a 3-fight deal. And I just had faith that Andre Ward, being the cerebral fighter that he is and the great fighter that he is, and having the skills, that he would be able to duplicate that success in a new division. That's with Andre Ward. Now, Crawford can also have a lot of success at 154, but there are some things that are slightly different. Because for me, Crawford, there's moments where we've seen Crawford hurt by smaller fighters. Namely, what sticks out, and I know it was a while ago, but it was the Gamboa fight. But it's not just the Gamboa fight. I've seen Crawford hurt in other fights, like where he was at least got his attention. If you watch the Thierry Jean fight, and you watch fights like the Mean Machine fight, he definitely got dropped in that fight, things like that. So it's not taken away from Crawford being a top talent, but I do see Madrimov as being a challenging rival because, as I've said throughout this video, Madrimov represents a very good puzzle with very, like, a lot lesser game. And I'll try to explain that for you guys. So what do I mean? Everybody wanted to see Crawford versus Errol Spence. That goes without saying. So that was a fight where we knew both parties were going to train as best as they could for the particular fight, right? That's just what it is. You have a guy like Madrimov where there's so many people that don't even know who Madrimov is. And it just creates a different atmosphere, if you will, for the fighter versus a high profile fight. Like, let me give you an example. Danny Garcia, when he fought Lucas Matisse was widely considered to be a boogeyman at 140 pounds, right? Danny Garcia fought him. Danny Garcia put up an amazing fight, hurt and even dropped Lucas Matisse. And I don't even think Matisse was ever the same. But for those big fights like that, and there's a lot of pressure on your back, you know to prepare, and you got to prepare in a certain fashion because of the obligation and like the pressure from the fans and grudge match and things like that. But using Danny Garcia as this continued example, when Danny Garcia fought in Puerto Rico against Mauricio Herrera, some people thought he lost the fight. And that was like supposed to be a hometown feel-good fight after the Matisse fight. It was really supposed to be an easy fight for Danny. Like, okay, he could beat Lucas Matisse, who was considered a boogeyman, and almost stop him and drop him and mess up his eye. So Mauricio Herrera doesn't have that much power. He was considered a guy that Danny Garcia should be able to, pull the trigger on and do some things with. But it wasn't the same type of pressure leading into the fight for Danny Garcia facing Mauricio Herrera as there was facing Matisse. Matisse was kind of like his do or die moment. And I feel like that's a great parallel to Terence Crawford. Crawford's in the same exact boat, if you think. Errol Spence was the fight you had to win because it was like a long-standing beef. It was for all the marbles, undisputed, things like that. Now, I'm not saying Crawford won't be training hard because I've already seen some footage and clips and it does look like he's training hard, but it also looks like Madrimov is training hard. And one of the things that's interesting, and see, this is the other thing about my channel. Whether I'm right or wrong, there's nobody in this game that's going to bully me off of my opinions. This is my channel with the great fans. I've been able to amass the numbers that we've done, and these are my thoughts and these are my opinions. So whether I'm right or wrong, I'm entitled to that, and I always break it down. So if you don't want to give Israil Madrimov any shot to beat Bud Crawford, that's on you. But I think he's being grossly overlooked. And I know it's just a box jump and this is just training, and people are going to leave comments, oh, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to you. The fact that he's leaping and he's jumping this high, it further lets me know something that I've already told you about regarding Madrimov, and that he is an athletic guy, right? Point blank, period. So if you were the thing why I get a lot of predictions right is because I really respect the game and try to break down the game as best as possible, right? So I don't have a horse in the race. I completely look at the fight, right? I look at the fight just basically with a neutral perspective. And I look at it as if, if I was a trainer and I was studying tape to beat a person, what would I do? What would I implement? What would be the game plan? What would be the style? Or does my fighter have these attributes that I think would give problems to the other guy? That's how I view it. And I've always thought this from the moment the fight was really officially announced, is that Madrimov does have some of the attributes that I think would be necessary to try to beat Terence Crawford, because it's not going to be easy for anybody to beat Crawford. But if you don't possess certain attributes at all, then you're automatically disqualified. So I think this will be a tougher fight than the Errol Spence fight. I don't know. I'm not trying to down Errol Spence. I don't know what went on. He hasn't really said too much, but he looked off. Bad night in the office. It is what it is. But to me, he looked off. Like struggles with the weight camp, or something happened, or not the same since the accident, whatever you want to say it is. Cause I'm not in his camp, so I don't know. But Errol Spence, he just didn't look like he could pull the trigger on that given night. And the performance that Errol gave, I don't think he would have beaten other guys that he beat when he beat him if he looked the same, like Ugas and Kell Brook and Danny Garcia and stuff like that. I don't know he gets through those guys, Sean Porter and all those guys, looking like that. So if he stayed at the division too long or whatever, you guys can sort through that. I'm giving you my honest opinion. But the thing is, with Madrimov, people I think are reveling in the Errol Spence victory, which is dope. That, it was a great win for Terence Crawford, but that was that. You can't expect everybody to perform like the last guy performed. You know what I mean? You look at like Floyd Mayweather versus a guy like Canelo. Floyd schooled Canelo easy. But what does that have to do with Maidana? When Floyd fought Maidana actually gave the tougher fight to Floyd Mayweather than Canelo. But before the fight, people thought Maidana was going to easily get outboxed by Floyd. And then there were people in real time who thought that Canelo was too young and it was his time. They thought he could knock out Floyd. And that's the point I'm making here with this video, is boxing is weird like that. There's no rhyme or reason. You guys can think, like, if we're really being real, using Floyd, I'll use him again as an analogy. If I'm being honest with you, I feel like people thought Pacquiao or Canelo could do something with Floyd and possibly beat him. And I think you could really say and easily say that Maidana 1 did better than both Pacquiao and Canelo. But in the public's mind, people thought Pacquiao or Canelo could beat Floyd. But realistically, Maidana had a better game plan and a tougher fight, probably won more rounds than both Pacquiao and Canelo did. And boxing is fickle like that. So Crawford, he looks like he's training hard. He looks in shape. He's working with Andre Ward. But I do see this Madrimov being almost like a black sheep type of opponent, where he can't sleep. He has to be on his P's and Q's, because Madrimov, you see it. He's athletic. He's bouncy. He has power, and he has power in both hands. And he's like kind of a sleeper because he has 10 fights. No one really knows him. So realistically, he has everything to gain by trying to upset and unseat Terence Crawford and retain his title. And Crawford is expected to do all this stuff especially since people seen how masterfully he dealt with Errol Spence. But again, boxing is weird like that, where the guy you think would give said guy a tough fight, maybe he doesn't. Maybe that's not the person, right? But then somebody else that people are sleeping on, they're the ones that truly give the fighter a tough fight. And I just gave you some examples of that. Pacquiao, Canelo, people thought that they could beat Floyd, but literally it was Maidana who came closer to doing something with Floyd than them. And that's all I'm saying with Madrimov. I think he possesses a lot. Listen, no matter what happens, I'll give credit to the winner as long as it's fair, like I always do. If Madrimov go in there and get dusted off and Crawford knocks him out and all this that you guys are saying in the comment section, and it's easy work, then I'll give Crawford props for that, right? Again, I don't have a horse in the race. I'm just analyzing the fight. But I see Madrimov's athleticism being a problem because Crawford, when has he fought someone with some decent footwork? You know what I mean? That was never been bruised and battered, didn't have wars, didn't have a bunch of mileage on him, had some good amateur experience, power, new division. You know, these are some unique situations. So I'm very anxious for this fight to see how both fighters look. But I do see it being a benefit that Madrimov, he got a little something to his game, you know, including footwork and athleticism. Because if I were designing a fighter to beat Crawford, I would want them to have those attributes. And like I keep saying throughout this video, sometimes it's the guys that you expect to do something. They might put up a flat performance. It's a big high profile fight. They put up a flat performance. And then you have somebody out of nowhere that's not expected to do nothing with that person. And then they the ones that win. Like, look at Jeff Horn got a win over Manny Pacquiao, but there are other names that Pacquiao fought and literally they couldn't, like Jesse Vargas, guys like Brandon Rios, they couldn't do nothing with Pacquiao. But then some random guy from Australia, Jeff Horn, gives Pacquiao a much tougher than expected fight. I did think Pacquiao won the fight, but the judges scored it for Horn, so he was the official winner. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes you got to watch for these black horse, underdog, unknown kind of commodities, especially when they have some good attributes to rival whoever they're fighting. And that's what I see here with Madrimov. He looks decently fast, power, both hands, athletic, foot speed. Should be a good fight.